Have you ever wondered why some people appear noble and kind on the surface, yet behind closed doors reveal a completely different face? Why do so many of us get trapped, admiring, trusting, even following people who later show us their true, ugly nature? It's a painful truth. We rarely see people as they really are. We see only the mask they present. And unless you know what to look for, you will always be deceived. Carl Jung once said, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself and others think one is." In other words, everyone wears a mask, a carefully crafted image, and this mask is designed to hide the truth of their character. So how can you break through it? How can you see the real person standing in front of you? The answer is unsettlingly simple. To see someone's true character, Jung's psychology reveals you only need to pay attention to two things.
Watch closely. Not how they treat their boss, not how they behave in front of a crowd, but how they treat those with no power over them. The waiter, the driver, the subordinate, the child, the elderly. Do they show kindness and respect? Or do they show cruelty, impatience, disdain? This is the first fracture in the mask, because when there is no advantage to be gained, the persona slips, and what slips through is the shadow. Jung described the shadow as the dark, hidden part of the psyche, the impulses we repress, the cruelty we deny, the envy we refuse to acknowledge. The more someone hides behind a perfect mask, the more dangerous their shadow usually is. When you notice how someone treats the powerless, you are not just observing manners, you are watching their shadow leak out. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. But there is a second thing, and this one is even more revealing. It cuts much deeper, straight into the heart of who they really are.
Think about it. When someone agrees with us, when the world applauds us, it is easy to act composed, generous, virtuous. But the real test comes when someone challenges us, disagrees with us, resists our control. How does this person respond when their ego is wounded? Do they stay calm? Do they engage with reason? Or do they explode with rage, manipulation, or subtle revenge? Jung believed that conflict strips away the mask of the persona. It forces the unconscious drives to the surface. In the face of opposition, the mask shatters and the true self reveals itself, sometimes noble, often frightening. These two moments, how they treat the powerless and how they handle opposition, are the twin gateways into a person's true character. Most of us never look closely enough. We get distracted by charm, by appearances, by the roles people play. But Jung warned us, the persona is not the person. It is only a role in society. If you stop at the mask, you will be deceived. But if you look at these two things, you will see through the illusion. And once you see, you cannot unsee. But let us dig deeper. Why is it that powerlessness and opposition reveal the shadow so clearly? Why do these two conditions act like psychological X-rays exposing the truth beneath the mask? To answer this, we must go further into Jung's framework. We must confront the uncomfortable idea that within each of us lives not only a persona we show to the world, but a darker twin, a hidden figure that governs far more of our actions than we dare to admit.
So, why is it
that how someone treats the powerless and how they react to opposition exposes the deepest truths about their soul. Carl Jung gives us the answer: the shadow. The shadow is everything a person does not want to admit about themselves. The envy they suppress, the cruelty they deny, the rage they disguise with smiles. It is the dark mirror of the persona. The more carefully someone polishes their public mask, the more violently the shadow waits underneath. And here's the unsettling truth: no one is free of it. Not me, not you, not anyone you admire. The difference is only this: whether a person faces their shadow or whether they let it secretly control them. Now, think again about those two gateways. When a man speaks kindly to his boss or flatters the wealthy, this costs him nothing. It serves his persona. But when he interacts with someone beneath him in power, a child, a servant, a stranger, there is no reward for kindness. And so the persona loosens, the mask slips, the shadow has a chance to breathe. Likewise, when everything is going smoothly, a person can maintain their performance. But when opposition strikes, when their ego is bruised, when their authority is questioned, the raw unconscious comes surging forward. The shadow leaps out. This is why Jung insisted the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. Because what you do when no one can reward you, and what you do when your pride is wounded, that is who you are. But it gets darker still. Most people are not even aware of their shadow. They project it onto others. Jung called this projection the unconscious act of seeing your own denied flaws in someone else. A man who cannot admit his own weakness accuses others of being weak. A woman who suppresses her envy lashes out at those she believes are jealous of her. This is why relationships become so twisted. People accuse others of sins they secretly commit themselves. It is not awareness, it is the shadow trying to escape responsibility. And here's the trap. The more a person refuses to face their shadow, the more hostile they become when others confront them. That is why opposition is so revealing. Because in opposition, projection shatters. The mask cannot hold, and the true character emerges raw and unfiltered. But pause for a moment. This is not just psychology in the abstract. This is about survival. Because the people around you, friends, lovers, leaders, can either lift you higher or quietly destroy you. How many times have you seen it? A charming friend who later betrayed you, a leader who spoke of virtue but acted with cruelty behind closed doors, a partner who promised love but revealed manipulation, jealousy, control. The signs were always there. You simply weren't trained to look. Jung's psychology trains your eyes. It tells you, do not be fooled by masks, do not be dazzled by words or wealth or image. Instead, watch. Watch how they treat those with nothing to give. Watch how they handle those who resist them. Because in those moments, the shadow speaks. But this revelation raises a far more disturbing question. If the shadow is universal, if every human carries this darkness within them, what does this mean for society itself? What happens when entire nations admire leaders without noticing how they treat the powerless? What happens when cultures reward rage, ego, and domination instead of humility and integrity? History gives us the answer. Time and again, corrupt leaders rise not because they are noble, but because their shadows align with the shadows of the crowd. And so the lesson of Jung's psychology is not only personal, it is collective. If you cannot see the mask in individuals, you will be blinded by the mask of entire systems.
If the shadow reveals itself in individuals, then what happens when millions of shadows gather under one banner? History shows us, when societies admire the mask instead of the truth, when they celebrate charm over character, eloquence over integrity, the mask becomes a throne. Corrupt leaders rise not because they are strong, but because they understand the weakness of the crowd. They know people are dazzled by appearances, by speeches, by symbols, and so they perform. But behind that mask, the same two tests apply. How do they treat the powerless, and how do they respond to opposition? Every tyrant in history failed these tests. They crushed the weak, and they silenced the opposition. And yet the crowd admired them, because the crowd itself was blind to its own shadow. Carl Jung warned us, the greatest danger is man's unconsciousness. When people refuse to face their inner darkness, they project it onto the world, and then they seek leaders who embody that darkness for them. This is why dictators are worshipped. It is why corrupt politicians are re-elected. It is why betrayal repeats itself in every generation. Because people do not see, they do not watch the right things. They are hypnotized by the mask. Now pause for a moment. Think of your own life. How many times have you trusted someone, a friend, a lover, a mentor, only to be betrayed when the mask slipped? How many times have you ignored the warning signs because you wanted the illusion to be true? This is the danger Jung tried to expose. It is not enough to listen to words. It is not enough to be impressed by surface. You must train your perception. The test is always the same. How do they treat those who cannot help them? How do they handle those who resist them? In those two moments, you will see everything. But there is also hope here, because Jung's psychology is not just a mirror for others, it is a mirror for yourself. Ask yourself honestly, how do you treat the powerless? How do you react when someone opposes you? These moments reveal your own shadow. And here lies the path to strength. The man who faces his shadow, who admits his envy, his rage, his weakness, is far less dangerous than the man who denies it. Because the moment you confront the darkness, it loses its power to control you. The shadow, once faced, becomes a source of wisdom. It teaches humility. It teaches compassion. It teaches restraint. But the shadow denied, it rules in secret. It destroys silently, and then suddenly, all at once. So the question is not only, how do I see the true character of others? The deeper question is, am I willing to see my own? If you can face your shadow, you cannot be easily deceived by the masks of others. If you integrate your darkness, you cannot be manipulated by those who wield theirs. And if enough of us learn this lesson, then perhaps society itself will no longer be enslaved by corrupt leaders and false idols. Carl Jung left us with a warning, but also with a challenge. The warning: most of humanity lives in masks, projecting their shadows, blind to their own nature. The challenge: to be different, to see clearly, to watch how people treat the powerless, to observe how they handle opposition, and to hold yourself to the same standard. Because in the end, character is not revealed by what we claim to believe, nor by how we act when things are easy. It is revealed in the dark moments, when there is nothing to gain, when there is everything to lose. That is where the mask breaks. That is where the truth lives. And if you are brave enough to see it, you will never be deceived again.